We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the March 29th, 21 meeting for the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair, also representing District 2. Joining me this morning is Commissioner Bill Rippon, representing District 1. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Aaron Mays, representing District 3. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Clerk, our first item.
Our first item is item 3, consent agenda.
There are 4 items on the consent agenda. Are there questions or is there a motion?
I'll move to approve. Second.
There's a motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers totaling $238,534.85. One highlight on there that I wanted to point out is under general expense to Siemens Industry totaling $18,936. It's for the fire alarm system at Maynard Conference Center. I don't have any questions about this, and I'd move for approval. Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, audit finance number 1, consider approval of request to post and fill the position of Director of Facilities Management with salary dependent on qualifications.
Good morning, Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. This position is responsible for the management, maintenance, and improvements of Shawnee County buildings and facilities. So I would like to get this posted and filled as soon as possible.
Questions regarding the item?
I have none.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B2, consider approval of request to award bid and negotiate a contract with mcelroy Inc. for courthouse HVAC repairs to dual duct VAV boxes utilizing contingency funds.
Okay, this item, back in February, you granted permission to put this out for bid. We have done that. We have got the bids back, and we are recommending that we award the bid to mcelroy's and then give the county counselor's office the authority to negotiate a contract. I have Tom Randall's here if you have any technical questions on a VAV box or the HVAC system and how this will affect it.
Any questions for Betty or for Tom?
No.
Okay.
I'll move to approve. Second.
There's motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Our next item.
Item C, solid waste number 1, consider approval of request to issue a request for quotations for solid waste commercial and industrial containers with funding from the collections operational budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. We are experiencing quite a bit of commercial growth with our customers, and they're requesting a lot of little smaller containers as well as our bigger containers. So we are looking to go out for a request for quotation to establish a cost for these containers so that we may purchase them later on down the road. And of course, we will come back after the bids and request that authorization. So again, just looking to establish a quotation for all my containers. Subject to questions?
Any questions for Bill?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move. Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you,
Bill.
John.
Our next item.
Item D, Parks and Recreation number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-120-2021 Amendment number 3 to contract C-84-2018 with Topeka Umpire Association for a 2-year extension of umpire services, game scheduling, fee adjustment, and updates on pay schedule with funding from the departmental operations budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. Before you today, we're asking to amend the contract with Topeka Premier Umpires, extend it 2 years. This is a vital partnership with this organization as they help promote our facilities and our programs, and we work together very well on the training of the umpires and even the youth officials that we have. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Randy regarding the contract?
Have none.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Reflected, it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-121-2021 with Field Turf USA, Inc., setting the guaranteed maximum price, $1,129,914, and scope of work for the turf projects at Lake Shawnee Girls Softball Complex and the Bettis Family Sports Complex multi-use field utilizing various funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby again. This project's been in the works for over a couple years now. We went out and started with your approval of PEC to engineer the project back in early fall of 2019. We went out for bid. Mammoth and Mammoth, excuse me, is the contractor with Field Turf USA. They're the manufacturer of the turf. They were the low bid, but however, the pandemic hit and we put a hold on all our projects. Last fall, we contacted Mammoth just to see if they would honor the year-old bid that they had, and they said they would. And we came down and you accepted that bid, I believe, in fall, maybe October of last year, and approved us to negotiate a contract, and that's what we have done today. The funds come out of 3 different areas. We have the excess reserve funds, the capital outlay funds, and the park maintenance 3R funds to make up this project. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Randy, on the description on the memo, it talks about the multi-use field. Would that be the soccer field that we see next to the Bettis Family Complex?
That is
And you're planning on doing that in June?
correct. June 1st, we're hoping to get started. They thought 30 days, and then they would move right over to the girls' site to start. The season would be over. Hopefully, it would be on the downhill side anyway, on the girls' side, and we'll be able to get started on it as soon as possible.
In the past, we've had the USSSA softball tournaments at Bettis. Is this going to impact any of that sort of softball play?
Actually, it's going to make it so much nicer because we'll have 4 other fields that we'll have turf on. As you're aware, Kansas weather changes all the time, and the rainouts are a big concern, especially on the girls' side currently. The boys, obviously, you don't play through a heavy rain, but 2-inch rain and it stops, you can basically get right out and play. And I think this is going to increase our chance to get major tournaments and have more fields to play on. And economic impact would definitely increase.
Okay. Questions for Randy?
Yes. Is the entire field turf there?
No, it's just the infields. 2 of them, the foul lines and warning track will be turf, but on the 2 other ones, it'll just be the infield.
Okay. And then on the soccer field, does Shawnee Heights still use that?
Yes, they do. We use, I'd say, about 80-20 split. Theirs is probably about 20% they use it, some for practice and their games. We hold far more participation on it. Even when we don't have stuff scheduled, if we have a ball tournament in there, that's the warm-up area for so many teams, and they're so happy to have that because several complexes around does not have that, so that's why they keep coming back here for even the baseball.
Was there any interest in Shawnee Heights in helping participate?
I know and I'm not sure what the previous contract was, they paid a pretty good amount when we
first
built
round.
the complex. I don't have those numbers in front of me. But at the same time, I know they were going through the pandemic and number crunch also when we put this all together, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Mays?
Yeah, Randy, you mentioned it was Mammoth, but it says Field Turf USA. Is it the same company?
Yes, Field Turf is the manufacturer of the turf, Mammoth. And Jim, you might be able to help me. I believe this was for bonding purposes, to bond the money. They had to go through the actual turf company.
Okay, great. And I appreciate you working with Mammoth. It's great that we have a local company.
I am too. They've
nearby
done
that
a
can do
super
that.
job. They did our JR field, I believe, 2 years ago, and we're very pleased with the product.
Great, thank you.
Will this be the same turf as what we had before? I mean, same.
Pretty close. It may have minor changes, but it's going to be pretty close.
How many years did we get out of the first round?
Oh, we got more than expected. I think they estimate 8 years, and we got close to 10. So,
Okay. All right.
and again, we use a lot of play on it. So, and that's good.
Good.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, reflect that it passes 3-0. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Our next item.
Item E, Stormont Bailey Event Center. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-122-2021, extension of an emergency services agreement between Global Spectrum LP, Stormont Vale Health, and Shawnee County for the purpose of establishing a medical facility location to vaccinate, inoculate, and provide medical services and monitor patients in need of medical care at Exhibition Hall on the campus of Stormont Vale Event Center through July 31, 2021.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Spectre Venue Management in the Stormont Vale Event Center. The item before you today is an extension of the mass vaccination site that is currently taking place in Exhibition Hall. Over the past few weeks, we've been in communication with the Stormont Vale Health Hospital team about the need for an extension of that vaccination site. Initially, that was looking to be about a 3-month extension. We were able to agree on a 2-month extension that finishes that clinic up at the end of July. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Kellen, how has this impacted some of the events and planning you've had at the event center?
Sure. Yeah. So the vaccination site, since its beginning, has had a pretty significant impact on the amount of event content that takes place in those spaces. Not only Exhibition Hall, but Landon Arena as well. With this extension, we do have some event content in the months of June and July that we are working on either transitioning into Landon Arena and or some of our other facilities that we have on campus. Our plan is to eventually transition some of the entryway for the vaccine clinic back to the atrium area as soon as the northeastern expansion of the renovation is fully completed. Some of the site work that is on site is completed, allowing full use of Landon Arena, hopefully starting in late May, early June.
Okay. And as far as the renovations go to the event center, with the new entryway, the escalator, how are we looking at having people come into Landon Arena?
Yeah, so the entry points into Landon Arena, as soon as the renovations are complete, will be through that new northeast extension and expanded corridor area. There's a large gathering space inside that area where, to your point, there's a large staircase indoors as well as an escalator that gets you up to the main concourse level. And then also we continue to have our ADA or zero entry, zero elevation entry open there on the southwest kind of corner of the building as well.
Other questions for Kellen?
You said the original extension, they were looking at 3 months and they've reduced it to 2 months. Is that basically what they're doing?
Correct, yeah. The original conversations were looking through the end of August. We were fortunate to be able to kind of look at that schedule, hopefully make some adjustments in that and move that to the end of July at this point.
Are they just not getting the numbers that they anticipated, or are they getting so many more people vaccinated they don't need the
You know,
or both, or?
I don't know the answer to that question. Our team is on the operational side of
Sure.
setups, tear downs, and helping some of the infrastructure pieces with security, parking lot coordination, things like that. From a vaccination standpoint, I don't have those answers, unfortunately.
All right.
Kellen, how is this going to impact the Shawnee County Fair? I know that we have a number of Fair Association members present.
Yeah. Yeah, so our team has been communicating with the Shawnee County Extension Office and the Fair Board throughout this past week. We are looking at still hosting the fair. We've set aside some of the other facility use for the fair with things like Ag Hall, Heritage Hall, Domer Livestock facilities in its entirety, so that would include the arena, the stall barn, the warm-up arena, as well as land and arena for production of that space, and all the ancillary pieces inside those spaces, so concourses and land and arena, parking lot use, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to make as many accommodations as we possibly can to still be able to host those types of events. It's not just the fair that's having to adjust. It's a number of different events. We have banquets, awards, galas that were due to take place inside of Exhibition Hall that'll now be taking place inside Land and Arena, and some additional content as well.
When we talk about Ag Hall, I mean, I know that one of the concerns in the past has been for the Fair Association is if you have young children that are participating in events at the Domer Arena, and then they also have events at Ag Hall, going all the way around and making sure that they don't get lost or there's not a safety issue. Is there any consideration for using a Maynard Conference Center? Is that even a possibility?
You know, it could be. I don't want to speak out of turn. Our company does not manage Maynard Conference Center, but we can certainly work in conjunction with Atrium Hospitality, the management group for that location, and see if there's possibility to expand some of those services to that area.
So I know that the Fair Association has used parts of Maynard Conference Center for photo judging in the past.
Sure.
And so I'm just trying to think through what would be a closer distance, and so.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kellen regarding this item?
I just have one question. Has using that large space for vaccinations, has that slowed down our construction?
The vaccination site itself hasn't really had too much impact. We had a week or so there where we were trying to get some of the additional concrete out front at the northeast entry, but it didn't reduce the schedule or delay the timeline. The most significant impact we've had over the past couple months has been the rain delays. We've had some significant rain, as you've all been witness to over the past few weeks. So. But no, from a vaccination standpoint, we haven't really had much impact at all.
I know that there are members of the Fair Association and Extension that are here. I don't know if anybody wishes to address the commission regarding concerns they may have for this item, or if any member of the public wants to address the commission on this item.
Good morning. My name is Jason Schultz. I am the secretary of the Shawnee County Fair Board. And I can say that we have been in contact with the Spectrum Management and the Extension Office and the Fair Board and management will work together to try to put together a fair. It may not be close to normal, but it's going to be the best product that we can get. And at this point, we don't have any concerns. I'm going to talk to Phil Sanders, our board president, and we're going to start getting the ball rolling and see about getting this fair put together.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any other individuals wishing to address the commission regarding this item?
Good question.
Commissioner Mays?
Kellen, you and I had talked, and it was mentioned that there's a possibility that Stormont Vale may not need the facility for this long. I believe the fair is scheduled for like the second or third weekend of July.
Correct.
In the event that Stormont Vale decides that they want to pull out of their July 1st or something, are we going to be able to make accommodations for the fair to move into that space?
Yeah, what we're trying to do on our end for the event production and event planning side is essentially planning for two events. We're planning for the event in its original location. And this isn't just for the fair, this is for all events in June and July that will be displaced or have to adjust. We'll make accommodations to plan for the new adjustment of where they'd be moving into and the spaces that they would be using, but also keep intact the event plans for their original space locations. So is it going to be a challenge to try and make that adjustment on the fly? Certainly. It certainly will, but you know, we're hopeful that the vaccine clinic can continue to run at full capacity and continue to get as many of our community members through there as possible, and hopefully, you know, end before that extension timeline is up. I think the reality is we just don't know when that's going to happen. It's all contingent upon federal and state allocations of the vaccine and how many community members we can get through there.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No.
No. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0. And again, I just hope that we are able to pull the fair off. I know last year not having a fair in person, doing a completely virtual fair, still was able to proceed, but just wasn't quite the same. And so we look forward to having a fair in July. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Our next item.
Item F, Department of Corrections, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-123-2021, memorandum of understanding between Shawnee County and the Kansas Department of Corrections Topeka Correctional Facility, allowing both parties to work together during events that result in emergency housing for female inmates.
Good morning, gentlemen. Major Eve Kendall from the Shawnee County Jail. I have before you a memorandum of agreement with TCF, Topeka Correctional Facility. It's part of our emergency management plan, our COOP plan, that we have agreements that we will work together the best we can with other departments, other jails, other juvenile detention facilities, prisons. If there was ever an event that would, either one of us would have to relocate some of our inmates. We've been doing this for several years now. We just update every year to make sure that everyone still has the same agreement and still is able to help each other out. I'll stand here for any questions you might have. Also, the County Counselor's Office has reviewed this agreement and to legality and form and has approved it.
Any questions regarding the item?
No. I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Reflect that it passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item G, Commission number 1, review of emergency order, resolution number 2021-18, use of face masks and face coverings, resolution number 2021-19, and adoption in part of emergency order for county facilities, resolution 2021-20, in response to the new Senate Bill 40 statutory requirements as a result of the enactment of Senate Bill 40.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Krause, Shawnee County Counselor. As the clerk indicated, we have new legislation in Kansas, Senate Bill 40. It was recently enacted by the legislature, signed into law by the governor last week, and it's been published in the Kansas Register, so it is now law. The pertinent section is in Section 12 of Senate Bill 40, and that amends our existing 65201, which deals with the authority of our local health officer to order basic health restrictions. And so I'm just going to read out from the pertinent language in the statute what the new language says. And it says, if a local health officer determines it's necessary to issue an order mandating the wearing of face masks, limiting the size of gatherings of individuals, curtailing the operation of business, controlling the movement of the population of the county, or limiting religious gatherings, the local health order should propose that order. So it'll work a little bit differently, similar to the process we have been using since last June 9th. Instead of issuing an order, which is then reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners, the health officer will issue recommendations, which are then reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners. The other substantial change is they've added an appeal process for any party aggrieved by any order that would be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Any party would be able to file an action in district court, get a court hearing within 72 hours, and then the court is required to issue a determination within 7 days. In that hearing, the court shall issue, let's see, let me find the pertinent language here. Basically, the court must review the matter to determine whether the order issued by the Board of County Commissioners is narrowly tailored to carry out the purposes of the order. So it in a sense, puts the burden of proof on the county to defend what the order is before the court. So that will substantially change the groundwork in terms of the legal landscape, in terms of how these orders are implemented and operate in reality. So that's what the new legislation does, in essence, as far as we're concerned. And I'll be happy to try to answer any additional questions you might have about that.
Jim, I think that it is abundantly clear that this legislation is a reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the health officer had duties before the pandemic, emergency orders, so that if there was an outbreak in a daycare, they could come in and close the daycare to make sure that the contagious did not spread outside of that daycare facility. So if we have an outbreak of something that's contagious in a daycare, does the health officer still have that emergency power, or can she only propose it and then it has to get before the county commission?
No, this didn't affect the health officer's authority to issue quarantine and isolation orders. That's under a different statutory authorization to that. So, and as a lot of people will realize, the routine nature of those orders were in effect for years. We would typically have experience with them with certain other contagious diseases. So,
Okay. So they still have the ability to order a quarantine of an individual who is affected by any illness?
yes.
If it's
And
contagious?
there are already existing procedures in that statute for challenging that order and going to court and challenging that order. So this legislation does not change that.
But if a person is operating their business, in their business they're exposing the public to a virus, instead of being able to enact orders that would close their business, it would have to come before the commission for approval?
Well, I think specific businesses, you're still going to be subject to the existing statutes. This is more focused towards the generalized orders that affect everyone countywide. So, and again, any business that would be subject to a specific shutdown order, that statute already does have a similar appeal process available to them. What this does is really pull that quick appeal process into any order at this point, even the generalized ones.
So last week, Shawnee County enacted 3 resolutions, 2021, 18, 19, and 20. The first would be making a recommendation that as to gathering sizes and those sorts of requirements. The second was as to face masks, that we still had a resolution regarding the use of face masks and other facial coverings. The third resolution was that Shawnee County was going to have restrictions regarding their facilities as to gathering sizes and entrance and requirements. So under our current Senate Bill 40, how does that affect each one of those 3 components?
Well, it won't affect the first one you mentioned because we removed those requirements to recommendations. So we don't need to talk about that. It would affect the second one, which is our face covering, our face mask resolution, which is still required until it would automatically go away midnight April 15th. You put that deadline on it unless you decide to extend that. So it would affect that. So anyone aggrieved by that order can file a challenge in district court and get a hearing within 72 hours pursuant to the new statute. And then again, the same thing would apply to the third resolution, which is if anyone would be aggrieved by our rules that affect county property, would have the ability to seek that same relief by filing that appeal.
So if an individual wanted to host an event at the event center, and they wanted to have 2,000 people there, and we limited them to 1,000, they would be able to file suit with Shawnee County District Court, indicating that that is hindering their rights and abilities.
If they can convince the court that, yeah, they're aggrieved and it applies, yes.
Okay. Now, last week, Sedgwick County made a motion to rescind their facial coverings and also to remove any gathering sizes or other requirements. And then I think they were somewhat shocked and surprised to learn that there was a governor's order regarding facial coverings that then took effect. What is the status of the governor's orders?
My understanding is that per this new legislation, the current executive order mandating face masks will remain in effect until March 31st, and then the governor has expressed an intent to, then it expires under the statute. The governor has expressed her intent to issue a new one April 1st, which then is reviewable by the Kansas legislature.
And so we are somewhat caught in a little bit of the crossfire of state legislation over local control versus statewide control.
Right. Because our mask mandate is still in effect, it would trump the executive orders that are in place now or could be in place in the future. But if we do not have one in place, then we'll have to see how those orders play out.
And then the final question I have before opening it up to the other commissioners is, within this building, the Shawnee County Courthouse, one of the main tenants is the courts. Do we have, Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners, authority over the courts on how they operate?
No, the courts have their own independent authority on how to make rules for the efficient operation of the courts, and that's a separation of powers issue.
And if a person feels aggrieved by that, they can still file a suit, though.
Correct.
But that's something that's completely separate from the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Rippon?
What about schools? Are schools affected by this as well, or?
Yes, I mean, they're in the legislation in a similar manner to the way we are. As you know, since last summer, we have exempted schools from our resolution. So, in effect, we were already at the place where this legislation puts schools, and that is school boards will be determining their own rules subject to an appeal process that applies to them.
Now, a private business can still have their own rules, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner Mays?
Yeah, going back to what he was asking about the limit on gathering sizes, if a business or somebody wanted to host an event, they still have the ability to file that paperwork to a plan to get approval for a larger event than what we
Yes.
limit.
Yes.
So the odds of somebody being aggrieved are very minimal for that purpose.
Most likely, yes.
Okay. My understanding of this, and I've read it a few times now, is that if we are to do away with our rules, then we immediately default to the governor's rules. Is that
Correct.
okay?
For as long as they're in effect.
2 days.
But 2 days and then potentially longer. I mean, there's a good chance that doesn't hold up, but, so I think we're kind of in a weird spot here. And so I think we need to take some action today, I believe. Otherwise, I think, for one, I think the legislation's unreasonable to say that they have to have a hearing within 3 days and a judgment within 7 is, I mean, for anything is just insane, knowing that our courts are really, really backlogged right now. And it also says that if a judgment is not issued in 7 days, the relief requested is automatically awarded. So, I mean, that could be an infinite amount of judgment. So I think we're in a situation where we need to take some action. And I have a motion that I'd like to make if there's no more discussion.
Well, I think that for procedure for those that are in attendance, I recognize that there's a number of individuals that probably want to add public comment. I believe that our correct procedure would be, if there's a motion and a second, then we would open it up for public comment before taking a vote on that, and then determine if there's further discussion or amendments of that motion. So I just, along those same lines, yes, we are in a very bizarre state of affairs for local health. I think that it does expose the hypocrisy of the state legislature when they talk about that the best control is at local control, except when it applies to your local control, then it's the state control. So again, it just exposes that nobody really knows who's in charge at this point.
I completely agree. And let's not also forget that at the end of last session, they passed a bill to give us control. And now they want to take it back. And that's, I mean, it's fine, but I mean, it's interesting.
Commissioner Mays, if we can take up a motion.
Okay. So my motion would be on the resolution 2021 I believe it's 19. That's our current
The
version
face
of it?
mask?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to put a provision in there that all businesses and individuals can opt out. Anyone who wants to can opt out of that mandate. With businesses, I do think it's appropriate for them to put a sign on the door that says that they're exempting themselves from the mask mandate. And then an individual can opt out if they so want to. I believe what this does, it keeps the mask mandate in place for those who want to keep it in place, and folks who do not want it to stay in place can opt out, therefore removing any grievance that folks might have.
It would also preempt, so to speak, the executive order from kicking back in on us.
Yes, it's still much less stringent than anything the governor could propose, and I think allows people to act as they see fit, and then also removes the potential, like I said, infinite liability that's placed on us right now. And then also keep in mind, the city of Topeka has constitutional home rule, and there's nothing keeping them from superseding us. I doubt that they'll do that, but I mean, again, it goes to show the hypocrisy of our government system, that the city can do things that we can't do. So if they choose to do that, then that's up to them. But I think this keeps us in a good place.
So just to recap, the motion then would read that motion to amend Home Rule Resolution 2021-19 regarding facial coverings, that any business or individual may opt out of any requirement if they so choose. However, if a business chooses to have restrictions, those restrictions must be followed. Is that what I just want to make sure that.
I don't know if I think businesses can require whatever they want right now. I mean, if a business wants to enforce rules, I don't think you can.
This is where
They can,
This is where the confusion has been, and this is where the confrontations occur. When you have individuals that go to the Golden Corral, and just using a hypothetical, if the Golden Corral says you must wear a facial covering, and a person says, over my dead body I'm going to wear one, there have been confrontations, there have been physical altercations, not at Golden Corral, but we see this across the nation. And so I think that it needs to be clear what their authorities are. Can a business stop an individual from coming in without a facial covering if they so choose? Jim?
Yes,
Okay. Commissioner Rippon?
Haven't they always had that ability?
yes.
Okay, are we overcomplicating things? What would be the difference if we just said we're going to change all of our orders to recommendations?
Well, there's a
What would be the
motion.
difference?
Procedurally, there is a motion
Okay.
on the floor, and so it currently is looking for a second.
So I'll tell you the difference.
Okay.
The difference is that some businesses, they want to be able to say that they're following our order. And there are businesses and churches that I've spoken with that said, we'd prefer that you not remove the mask mandate in its entirety. And there are other businesses that say, we don't want to follow the mask mandate. And this, what it does is it doesn't put the businesses in a position where they are making up the rule themselves. They're following our rule, or they're making their own, but it's different from if we have no rules and then every business then becomes, you know, the bad guy in some people's minds. So this is an insulation, in my opinion, for those businesses that want to remain under the mask mandate. Without making their own mask mandates internally. I mean, we saw what happened with several businesses before we had a mask mandate. Several businesses had already put theirs into effect, and it was controversial for those businesses. It forced them to be boycotted by some people. I mean, they don't want to be in that position. And so this is sort of, we're still taking the blame, but also if a business wants to opt out, they can.
It doesn't leave us open to any.
I think if anyone subject to the order has the ability to opt out, and maybe we would want to clarify your motion to that effect, because there could be a subcategory that it would still apply to, because you said individuals and businesses that might still arguably be subject to it. So if it would be anyone that would be potentially aggrieved by our order would have the ability to opt out, I think that would cover the point you're trying to make.
I just
That's
wanted to make sure we didn't leave ourselves open.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Excuse me, Commissioner, can I get clarification
I-
on that?
well, I
On
was
the
just-
actual wording of that.
I was,
motion?
I'm gonna go back, yes.
Because if we're gonna,
Yes,
if we're
yes.
gonna, I think there was an amendment there somewhere along the line, but I didn't get an
So I'm
actual
going to
amendment.
try and see if I've got this, Jim. Just, the motion would read, an amendment to Home Rule Resolution 2021-19 regarding facial coverings, that all businesses, individuals may choose to opt out of any prescribed requirement as they so choose.
There's a
He
third
said so.
category, though, that could be affected, and that's
Potentially aggrieved.
nonprofits, churches. That's why
I
I
would-
added the point that I made. Someone could interpret that to saying, well, it only applies,
So
that
you're saying-
opt-out only allows individuals and businesses, not nonprofit
So if we
groups.
removed individuals and businesses and just said any party,
Any party that could be aggrieved by our order would have the opportunity to opt out. I think that would cover.
Any party aggrieved,
He said potential, his original was any party potentially aggrieved could opt out. Was that what you?
Yes.
Okay.
any party potentially aggrieved by the resolution may choose to opt out.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything additional to that sentence? Okay. And
Let's try to
Commissioner
make it
Mays, does that
Less
reflect,
complicated.
does that
as
reflect
possible.
your motion?
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish.
Commissioner Rippon, does that reflect your second?
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, now that we have put this together, I'm going to open it up to public comment. As you approach the podium, please do state your name for the record. Our clerk is recording who speaks in their discussion, so please do state your name before you make your comments. Dusty, I see you're up first.
Morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Incident Command for Shawnee County COVID Response. Listening to this, I can already tell some of the phone calls we're going to get. So I just looking for clarification. We have businesses and individuals can opt out. So if a business puts a sign up, says we're following the mask mandate, but the individual comes to that business and says, I'm opting out, there's going to be a little bit of a...
I think this is what we're talking about just a minute ago, that that would be up to the business how hard they want to push that.
So the overriding authority would fall to the business then, basically.
Right, any business
Okay.
has property rights.
Just,
I mean,
wanted to clarify.
they can, if they
Tell you to
want
wear a
it.
jacket or tie.
Yeah, if they don't,
Yeah.
I mean, there are bars that don't let you in if you have an athletic team on your shirt. I mean, it's no different from that. So I think it goes back to their property rights, and if they want to enforce it strictly, then that's up to them.
As long as they're not discriminating against a protected class.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good morning, Joe Popek. I really do appreciate the discussion. It's very confusing, convoluted, and as an individual, I'm a fairly bright guy. I'm sitting out here thinking, okay, what exactly does that mean? It's still confusing to me, I'm sorry. So if I, as an individual, because of this bill, now have recourse through the courts if I feel my rights have been violated, is that a correct way to state it? Aggrieved?
The term is aggrieved.
Aggrieved, okay. So does that mean if a business says to me, because businesses are going to be confused about this also, that if I go in and if there still exists a mask mandate, the county still has a mask mandate on, and if the business says, well, I'm doing it because there's a county mask mandate, and I feel aggrieved as an individual, do I then have recourse through the courts against the county?
I mean,
So, Jim, I guess I'm gonna rephrase your question just
Okay.
briefly. If I own a business and I put a sign on my door that says no entry without a mask,
Right?
and you say, but I want to come into your business, and why did you put this here? And I say, well, I only put this here because the county has a rule, and I'm choosing to follow that rule. I'm not opting out. Do you, as a private citizen, have a suit against the county for me choosing to not opt out? Is that your question?
Yes.
And my answer is no, because the final decision is being made by the decision, not by the county. The county's giving everyone the opportunity to decide whether they want to follow it or not. It really is just a different way of saying it's a
Okay.
strong recommendation, but
Yeah.
also having something in place so that we're not overridden by executive orders
Okay.
from the state.
so it's still, in my opinion, it's still that business's choice if they want to follow our order or not. I mean, it's still up to that business. And so, I mean, I guess the solution would be to file suit in court and see what happens. I mean, there's no case law. We don't know.
Yeah, I guess my point is that as long as you leave a mandate on, it gets very convoluted to the everyday citizen, exactly what we can do and what we can't do, and it could create some messes. I don't know.
Well, and this is the situation we're in, is the state law is very convoluted as well, and we're trying to adapt to it.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you don't have one, then it's clear. If the county doesn't have a mandate, then it's clear.
I don't think it is clear at that point either. I don't think there's anything that's clear about any of this right now, so, I mean,
And-
I think this is, the best solution right now is to allow people to opt out, and businesses, so.
Okay, and I do understand you're saying that, frustrated with the legislature and the confusion, but remember, gentlemen, part of this is that the citizens of this county, the legislature has heard from the citizens of this county. We're tired of health officers or individuals putting these mandates on us and curtailing our freedoms. So I do appreciate your frustration with the, You call it hypocrisy, I don't call it, it's not hypocrisy. They're just trying to do the best they can to respond to the people. Everybody's frustrated with it, so.
And then, Mr. Hopak, my
I do
response
appreciate
just briefly to that would be, your frustration is not at our health officer. Your frustration is with these three individuals right here. This board has approved or modified every health order that's come forward. So the final say has always rested right here. So if you're frustrated with the status of Shawnee County, your frustration rests with these three individuals.
That may be, but you can't tell me who I'm frustrated with and who I'm not. I am frustrated with the county health officer. She has stood here and said things that were untrue. So you cannot tell me, Commissioner Cook, who I'm frustrated with. I understand what you're saying. The bottom dollar lies here. The decision lies here. But I have a right to be frustrated and to listen and use my brain and to be frustrated with who I'll be frustrated with. And your county health officer is saying things that are untrue. And you're responding to those appropriately or inappropriately. So I think your comment was very out of line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Hopak, and just for the sake of the news coverage, my husband and I do not disagree on this issue. I was disappointed with the news. As my husband was saying, we can be frustrated with who we're frustrated with. I was frustrated with KSNT recently and had to have a bout with them about reporting incorrectly. I just want to, again, confirm what my husband said. This is not hypocrisy. This is people in the state of Kansas that are rising up and saying enough is enough. So I don't think our state government I just disagree with you on that. There is no hypocrisy here. You say Aaron Mays, well, they gave us that authority. Well, that's just great. I was glad that they gave you that authority, but frankly, you've taken that authority and you haven't done what the people who elected you to do. And I know you can say, well, we hear people on the other side. That's great. We all have the right to say that. But apparently, the legislature has heard a whole lot more than you have, because now they've decided they have to do something about it, when I believe they probably really didn't want to spend their time doing something about it. So it's not hypocrisy, and it is listening to people of the state of Kansas. I don't know if you really understand that. We are frustrated with the health officer. I know she is new to the job, but the fact of the matter is that, as Joe said, she has misrepresented some things. And I think you guys as a whole have not looked into that. If you have, it's not evident to anybody in this community. The other issue is that I don't understand why you have to convolute it. Recommendations are recommendations. People understand that word, unless that word means something different to you than what it does to me. My doctor can recommend me to stop eating sweets, and the choice is mine. You can recommend to the businesses, this is what we recommend, and let them make their own choice. And if you're worried about businesses saying, oh, we got to have the county commissioners behind us, that's crazy. Have you been into Menards lately? They have no concern about what you're saying. They're all over this mask thing, and it comes from corporate. And there are other businesses like that. When it comes from corporate, that's what they have to follow, and the citizens then follow it, or they don't go to that store. So I don't think the businesses need somebody to fall back on. If they do, then I don't know why they're running a business. It's their business and their decisions. So I don't know why you have to convolute it with adding this and adding that and opting out and so forth and so on. All you have to say is these are recommendations. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if he would have a different opinion, but I think you're making it more confusing. Just tell people it's recommended and let them make their own decisions. And if you're concerned about people wanting to wear masks, if you would look up the article in the Sentinel that was done on March 24th, there's a whole chart in there. Without mask mandates, a high percentage of people wear masks anyway. We're not ignorant people. If we choose to wear a mask, if we choose to believe the hype that's out there about this virus, they're going to wear a mask. I don't need you to tell me to wear a mask. I don't need a health officer to tell me to wear a mask. I need people to say to me, just like my physician does, here's the facts, here's what we're looking at, this is what I recommend, and then I will make the decision. So if you would look up that article, you would see a lot of good information in there in terms of how ineffective mask mandates have been in terms of COVID cases, and I don't understand why people aren't looking that up and having a more broader view of what's really going on. I don't understand that. That's what I try to do, try to look at everything and use my common sense, and I don't feel like that's been going on with our health officer. I'm sorry. I mean, she seems like a really nice lady. I don't feel like that she's done that. So, you know, if you look at this chart here, they say that, you know, even places where there's no mandate, 43% of the people wear a mask. I mean, come on. We can take care of ourselves. And so I just think that you're complicating it. It's convoluted, as Joe said. Just put down recommendations. Everybody can understand that. Let business owners stand on their own. It's their business. They need to learn to do that if they don't know how. But let them do that. And let the citizens do that. And if we want to go to, if somebody wants to go to court, then hallelujah, they should be able to do that if they want to. But just stop making it so confusing. Just make it recommendations, and let's get done with this. Thank you.
Any other individuals wanting to speak? Amanda, is there anybody in the hallway or lobby that? Okay. Any further discussion on this item?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused as what the difference is between just making a recommendation and your option for, I don't see the benefit. Why don't we just make it a recommendation? What would be the difference? I mean, business can do what they please. Individuals can do what they want. I don't understand. I'm still confused.
Well, if we, I mean, for one, like we talked about already, if we remove the mask mandate in its entirety, we go back to the governor's plan.
And if we don't, if
we keep something in effect, this allows anybody to opt out.
yes.
So I mean, more or less, that's what it is. However, it's still, like I said, it provides insulation for those businesses that want to follow the mask mandate. If they, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's coming from this direction or that direction. I mean, I think this is a better, I think legally speaking, I think this is a better protection for Shawnee County than going to recommendations only.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on that?
It would provide additional legal arguments in defense to a challenge than just having a recommendation, probably, if you're going to put me on the spot.
And I believe that from a liability perspective for those businesses, it protects them as well. I think if somebody were to sue a business for requiring masks, even though it's not ordered by the government, I think that this would protect those businesses as well, or churches or nonprofits or whoever. Or if I mean.
Any thoughts?
I'm going to vote no against this. I don't think the mask mandate is overly burdensome. I think that in the time that we've seen, masks are effective, that not having it sends a wrong message to the public. I know I may be in the minority in this room on this day, but I think that I'm in over the long time, we have seen the effectiveness of masks, and that as leaders in the community, we have a responsibility to set forth responsible positions for the protection of our public. I understand that I may be the only no vote on this, and so be it. But I understand, Commissioner Mays, where you're coming from, that we are opening ourselves up to a lawsuit, but I believe this is a lawsuit that can be defended in court.
May I? So my response to that is that yes, perhaps it could be defended in court. I think there's also a case that could be made that because we had our mask mandate in effect prior to this law going in, that we would be grandfathered in. However, why risk it? especially when we know that our court system is completely backlogged right now. There's no possibility of them making a judgment within 7 days. I don't believe at all. I mean, maybe they can do it, but I doubt it. That would put these cases as a priority to every other item coming through the court. I don't think that's a wise decision.
This is items that would be settled by civil. Shawnee County has a history, and many of you may not be aware, but whenever it comes to the constitutionality or legality of a state statute, it lands in Shawnee County, because this is where the law originated from. So Shawnee County courts have decided things such as school finance, items of public interest, and those go on for decades. And this is another legal decision that would be rendered by Shawnee County Civil Court. We have very capable judges. We have judges that have law clerks with years of experience, and so they have the resources to address the legalities and constitutionality of any statute that falls before them.
If I may, I agree, they're great. However, I think it'd be wise to let some other county be the defendant and not us.
Commissioner Rippon, I guess the burden then falls upon you.
Well, I was more on the side of just making all recommendations, but I can live with Commissioner Mays' motion, and at least I think it relieves us of a lot of legalities here if we do this, so. Yeah. So where are we at with this? We have a second on this?
There's a motion made by Commissioner Mays. It's been seconded by Commissioner Rippon. We have taken public comment. We've had further discussion at this time. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. The motion passes 2-1 with Commissioner Cook dissenting. I know that we are at 10 o'clock, so we're going to do our standing, but we're still proceeding. Are there any other motions to come before the court regarding our health orders, specifically Health Orders 2021-20 or 2021-18? Twenty 2021-20 is our health order regarding the Shawnee County facilities and buildings, wherein we still have a requirement that we have gathering size requirements, limitations. Those limitations can be overturned or changed or modified if a proper plan is presented to the Emergency Management Incident Command.
And I'll just say, point of order, Jim Crowell, Shawnee County Counselor, for the record, you still have a mask mandate that's going to
Yes.
apply for people using county property, so I just want you to consider that.
So our 2021-20 would mandate that if you come into the Shawnee County Court or the Shawnee County facility, you are still required to wear a mask. Are there any other changes or motions or modifications?
I don't see any need to.
Jim, does that open us up for any kind of litigation to require masks in the courthouse?
It would allow a challenge that anyone aggrieved who would come to the courthouse to do business, if they want to challenge the mask requirement, they could do that under the same procedure.
By the same token, if Mr. Hopek went to the Shawnee County Treasurer's Annex to renew his tag, and the sign said you must wear a mask, and he felt that that was an undue burden upon his person to wear a mask and to get his tags renewed, he could then file suit with the Shawnee County District Court.
Correct.
Why would we open that up? I mean, to me, I would just make that that would be a recommendation.
Commissioner, are you making a motion then to modify 2021-20 that there would be no requirement for masks in any county facility And it would be a recommendation only.
It would be I'll make that motion. I think too, it's gonna affect Parks and Rec. I think it's gonna affect the Stormont Vale Event Center. I think we need to,
Is there a second to make a motion to modify 2021-20 to a recommendation only and not a requirement?
Well, before I second, I want to make sure it's necessary. Our resolution, I believe, so we sit back down, okay.
Sorry.
And you'll have to forgive me, I didn't print that resolution off. I thought we were only talking about the one today, so that's what I brought. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but if in that resolution, doesn't it just refer to the mask mandate and say we're following the mask mandate? I mean, it doesn't have anything that says buildings are, it just says, I thought that the resolution that we passed last week for Shawnee County buildings was mostly in reference to the gathering sizes and things like that.
Commissioner, this is Jim Kraus, Shawnee County Counselor. Those resolutions did incorporate the mask mandate. So I think, to unpack the confusion, I think we haven't amended the expiration date on the mask mandate. We've amended it to allow people to opt out. So I think my recommendation is, or my opinion on what happens is, that mandate with regard to county buildings is going to stay in place until midnight on April 15th, unless we specifically act to exempt county buildings from a mask mandate. We did incorporate that into that resolution as well.
There's a lot to unpack there. I'm just trying to think of the best approach for this. Anyone else have a thought on that?
oh gee.
Well, as a point of order, the motion has been made. Is there a second to the motion?
I'm not saying that I won't second the motion, but I'm trying to decide. I don't want to vote on it just yet until I got to think about it. This is-
Commissioner, would you like, we could get copies of the resolutions, all three of the resolutions. You could take a 5 or 10 minute break, have each of you review those resolutions. I mean, I know it's not gonna give you a whole bunch of time, but just if you wanna
Commissioner
refresh
Mays,
your,
would that assist you if we took a 5-minute recess for you to review the resolution?
with that.
Yeah,
I still
yeah,
don't
I think
because
that'd
you
be
don't have it.
plenty. I'd want to get a copy of it and
Okay.
look at it.
There's,
We'll get them for you.
again, just as point of just order, there's a motion made by Commissioner Mays to take a 5-minute recess.
I'll second that.
We don't need a motion for that.
Well-
Can't we just stand at ease for a little bit?
Ms. Beck might tell me otherwise.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna take a recess, just if you do it officially, then then we know where we stand.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, then we'll come back to consider Commissioner Rippon's motion.
I have a question on that first. Did it have a date attached to it? That our first
recess, Commissioner Rippon had made a motion to modify 2021-20, which related to the Shawnee County facilities, specifically amending that any facial coverings or face masks would be a recommendation only and not a requirement. We were looking to see if there was going to be a second for that motion.
Okay, so there's one reference in 21-20, number 2 on the first page. All it says is the mask rules and requirements found in Resolution 2021-19 shall continue to apply throughout Shawnee County. I think if we just change that to say 2021-21, which is what the new order that the resolution we just approved would be, then that would still allow people to opt out when they're coming into the courthouse or whatever. However, like we talked about, the courts are gonna have to do their own thing. Because we can't do anything about what they choose to do. But that, I think, is the simplest solution. So I know that there's a motion on the table, but that's my recommendation, is that we just modify this to say, to just change the resolution number.
But that doesn't say what we're doing. It says it leaves it to each business or entity.
Or individual.
But
then we can have a policy that, you know,
so I guess,
so.
Commissioner Mays, where we run into issues, our Shawnee County Health Department is a medical facility. So are we indicating that we could not require masks in a medical facility? When we're having the Stormont Vale Event Center, agricultural hall, where vaccines are being administered, would there not be any mask requirement there if a person feels that they don't wish to wear one? If we are looking at our treasures, I mean, we have a lot of facilities. So, I mean, that's why we have to look at a broad range of different requirements. Everything from baseball and softball outside to a health clinic inside. So,
But does that open us up for litigation when we do that?
I believe that if you were saying a health clinic having a mask requirement would be defendable.
I agree, that would probably be defendable.
And this is Jim Krause, Shawnee County Counselor, Kellen helped me out on this, but I think Stormont Vale is technically leasing that facility, so they have their own ability to make their own rules for the conduct of the public coming into it.
Correct. To our understanding of the emergency services agreement that is in place for both Ag Hall and Exhibition Hall, the lessee, which in this case would be Stormont Vale Event Center, and the Shawnee County Health Department, has the ultimate right to do with those spaces as they will. So that is putting in place any requirements, restrictions for those spaces.
Kellen, is that a typical contractual arrangement where, let's say, Cirque du Soleil comes to town, that they can, that since they're leasing the property for those 3 nights or whatever, that then they choose the rules those nights?
Not typical in most contracts, but for these specific emergency services agreement contracts, it would be typical as we pretty much relinquish our management responsibilities of those spaces on behalf of the lessee that has access rights to that space. For example, if they wish that me or my staff did not have access to those spaces, then we would not have access to those spaces. Now, I'm not saying that would happen, but on a normal event licensing agreement, we ultimately have the end-all, be-all on what takes place in those facilities. So we typically work with them on any of those situations or any requests that they may have. But for purposes of the emergency services agreement, they have control of those spaces to do with what they will.
aside from the event center, I think that we have also the Shawnee County courts. Again, we've mentioned them earlier. Where does their authority begin and where does their authority end? Is their authority only over the courtroom, or do they have authority over an entire floor? If they have an entire floor that they have authority over, that being the second, third, fourth, do they also have full authority over the basement? There are courts in the basement. There's court services on the first floor. Should the Shawnee County Court have authority over the entire facility? And I don't know if we have any answer to that. This is a new territory.
Jim Kraus, Shawnee, please don't ask me to sue the courts as an aggrieved party on this. But, yeah, that's how I'm joking, but that's how complicated this gets. But I think the courts would have the authority, and I think they would agree. I mean, they've always had the authority under the Constitution to control how they operate. And I think they would continue to have the control in this situation. And I think we're going to have to look at their orders and see what they would actually order.
I would also opine or ask the commission to consider the Shawnee County Department of Corrections. At the Shawnee County Department of Corrections, our staff wear masks, our inmates wear masks. We've had a number of outbreaks within the facility, and our facility has worked hard to maintain those outbreaks to not expand and not proceed into other areas. We quarantine. And so if we make masks a recommendation only, we may have whole modules of inmates that refuse to wear a mask. And so we are inviting trouble to our facility.
I understand it with the jail and the health department specifically. I think that this is a very complicated issue, and I don't know that we have a good solution for it today. So
Maybe we could amend my motion to exclude the jail, courts, and contracts with Stormont Vale for giving vaccinations and possibly our health department. And could we do that?
We can also take the action, Commissioner Rippon, if you were to withdraw your motion, we could take a minute or two to look at our facility, review it with legal and our department heads, and come back to this item on Thursday or Monday. There's no requirement that we have to take action today. I understand there may be a desire to take action today so that it's clear, but if we take no action, our rules still stay in effect, that the masks would be mandated in the Shawnee County facilities until modified. And they are set to expire on April the 15th anyway.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are we open for litigation right now?
We are.
We are. So I think
Today,
maybe we need to speed it up a little bit then.
So,
well,
if
we've gone kind of around. There's a motion on the floor. I'm gonna call for a second. If there's no second, then this motion would die, and we would have the ability to take up another motion. Is there a second on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Rippon, your motion dies. We are now open for any other motions. Commissioner Mays.
not going to make a motion, but I think that this is, I don't think we're going to come up with a great solution today. I feel like we've sort of talked ourselves in a big circle here in the last few minutes. And, I mean, we can sit here and if we want to hammer it out, I'm sure we can come up with something that'll pass, but I don't know that it's going to be good, whatever it is. And I think giving Jim, your office, a couple of days and then having something on Thursday that's more of a complete, like, well thought out product. Because like I said, I think the simplest thing would be to, just amend it to reflect the order. But then again, the jail is a concern, the health department's a concern. Those are, for me, the two things. Stormont Vale, if it's in their contracts with their lessees, that's a whole different story to me. But, you know, I know the treasurer's office is probably gonna have some concerns with tag renewals and things like that, so, I mean, I just don't think that we're ready to make any kind of decision on this right now. And yes, I suppose it leaves us up for, you know, a liability for the next 3 days, but,
If we were to get 50 liability claims in the next couple days, what would happen?
Commissioner will respond and
There's no way.
wait for those to get scheduled, and we'll see what happens before we come back on Thursday. But I do think, I'll give you my recommendation, and my recommendation would be to receive input from the different departments so that you can at least find out from them what their thoughts are on this. I know the jail is a particularly important issue to consider.
Commissioner Rippon, a person would have to file their suit right now at 10:26 to have a hearing on Thursday at 10:26. And by Thursday at 10:26, we will have already debated this item.
Okay.
So, any other matters to come before the commission?
Commissioners, just to throw in a little bit of a thought process to the thought process here. Dusty Nichols, COVID response, Incident Command. When we're considering, or when you're considering the health department and all the facilities for there, I'm not sure if it would be prudent to look at the health department operations, not just the facilities, because we do mobile clinics, and keeping the masks are going to be pretty critical when those mobile clinics pop up as an extension of the health operation. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Any other items? Our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
This is an opportunity for any person or department head or member of the public to address the commission on any item. Morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Evans, Director with Shawnee County Extension. Coming with the happy news that I'm retiring April 16th.
congratulations.
I have sent all of you a letter, but I wanted to come take the opportunity to thank you for the wonderful support that you have provided to our office. Told myself I shouldn't get emotional. It has been a long career, 31 years with K-State Research and Extension here, and I have served as a Family Consumer Sciences agent, the FNIP agent, and as the director. It's been very rewarding, and I'm not going anywhere, so I expect to spend more time actually volunteering with Extension, so you'll see me at the fair and back as a VITA volunteer and a senior health insurance counselor. The family finance part is a portion I absolutely love, so looking forward to that and to continue serving the community, and just thank you for all the support. They've named my replacement. I won't say it by name, but we do have a 4-H position that is open at the Extension office, so we're accepting applications for that agent position until April 14th. And so we're going to try to move along as quickly as we can to get that next agent in place because the summer is such a busy time with the 4-H program. But thank you so very much, and we wish you the best. So,
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for all your years of service.
Congratulations, by the way.
Phyllis Setchell. I have seen articles that talk about the states, 17, 18, I don't know what number it is now, of states that have lifted all of these COVID restrictions. I also have done lots of research on masks. I know I personally and many others that I know are damaged by wearing masks, and many people are not looking into it. By continuing to put those in play and having to be a necessity, there are a vast number of people who don't know and aren't researching to see they shouldn't be wearing them. They are complicating and harming their health and make them actually more susceptible to catching something that comes along. And that is, those are facts that are being ignored. But the fact that there are many states, and in Kansas, many counties that are ignoring the governor's mandate for masks. And why is Shawnee County so different that we have to keep control over the population? We have not gone through a pandemic by numbers. We have numbers that match last year's flu. Where is this need to constantly mandate these restrictions? If it was a pandemic, when we didn't know what happened, we've said this before, the first month, we were say yes, whatever we think it needs to be. But we've lived through a year of this, and we don't have the numbers that say we are in a pandemic. This is why we're concerned about the health officers that are not looking at the same numbers and articles and research and that's out there. If you look only at the prescribed institutions that say, here's what you look at, you don't look at anything else, yeah, that's what they're going to come up with. But there is a vast world of knowledge and science out there. It's time to lift the regulations on everybody. If somebody wants to go to court and needs to be there and shouldn't be wearing a mask, you're just making it harder for them to say, well, I know I can't breathe and this is hard, but I got to wear it, and so they're harming their health. You can't look at it as just, this is a prevention, this is a safety issue, and we're doing the right thing. This isn't the right thing. And many, many states have already said this is over and we're lifting it.
Yes, it's me again, Kathy Hopak. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to speak. I really do appreciate that, and I know there's conflict and disagreement and so forth and so on, but this is the way the process works, and I appreciate that very much. Just some food for thought as you think about this until the next vote. I want to read something to you. When Kansas Governor Laura Kelly issued a new statewide mask mandate in November, 38 counties adopted it, 43 counties rejected her mandate, and 24 counties continued their enforcement of her July mandate. But 17 weeks later, the mask mandates show almost no impact on COVID case growth. As of March 22nd, the Kansas Department of Health and Education, that is a resource that you should be looking at, data shows that counties without a mask mandate added 5,441 cases per 100,000 population. The counties that had a mandate in effect added 5,439 cases. That difference of just 2 cases over 17 weeks in 43 counties is virtually unnoticeable. And if you're concerned about the jails and the health department, for crying out loud, what have they been doing all these years when there's flu outbreak? Does the health department not know to check their patients before they come in? Certainly they do. These are I'm a retired registered nurse. We're not that ignorant. Is the jail capable of saying we've got an outbreak of flu or possible tuberculosis? Do they not have the brains and the resources to say we need to do something about it? Do they have to sit around and wait till we tell them to do something about it? We've been able to do stuff about this always. People have always stepped up and done what they needed to do. The masks do not work. Even the CDC says it's a 1.8%. I mean, I cannot believe that you're not looking at even some of the resources that you claim that you look at. And they're saying this. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that you can't look at a broad perspective of what's going on. And you're asking your Shawnee County employees to continue something that is basically ineffective from our own Kansas Department of Health, from our own CDC. I mean, I don't know how you can do that. And I don't know how you can think that medical professional people don't have the brains to do something about something if somebody comes into their clinic or that human beings don't have the brains to do something about it. I mean, this is mind-boggling to me. I'm sorry. For 44 years of being a registered nurse, I've never seen anything like this. I just do not understand it. When this is no worse than what the flu was, and yet did you run around and mandate at the flu that we had to do all this? Is that what's coming next for our country? I mean, look at the facts. Let's be reasonable. The Kansas Shawnee County Health Department can take care of themselves. They're medical people. They can do that. The jail can put in place what they need to. We're not 12-year-olds or 10-year-olds that have to be told what to do when there's a crisis. So I would just hope that you would open up to more of these facts and really look at them and make a very common sense, logical decision for the people of Kansas. And again, I do thank you for being able to express opinions and thoughts and facts. And I honestly believe, as I sent in an email to Aaron Mays, that we have proven to you that these things are worthless, but you're just not doing anything about it. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi, Valerie Tolan here, and I just want to ask a question for food for thought is, if Texas and Florida, Arizona, Alabama, I mean, I think we're like 19 states right now have dropped these mask mandates. What are we missing that they're doing? Texas is 17 days after mask mandates and restrictions are lifted, and they are still on a decrease in cases. They have probably a way higher population than we do, even as a state. But what are we missing that they aren't? Right? And all of the states, the numbers are showing the difference. Our numbers are fantastic right now. And as they have said in the stats, it doesn't show that it's geared towards the mask mandate. And I fully believe that people are capable of making their own decisions. I feel like we're becoming that culture of let's give everybody a scapegoat. Let's give them an out. Let's not make them responsible for their own decisions. Thank you.
Any other public comment this morning?
Carrie Davidson here. Boy, this has been confusing, all of this discussion, and then all of the orders. You know, you've got resolution 20, 2118, 19, 20, and they're all connected, but they're all not connected, and all the legal stuff is pretty beyond me. It's great having an attorney here to analyze some of that, but I think what all this comes down to is what is the appropriate level of mitigation for the situation that we find ourselves in right now. And the CDC addresses that. I've got an article here, implementation of mitigation strategies for communities with local COVID-19 transmission. So that's us. And according to the scorecard, which for the record, I don't believe is that useful of a tool, but according to our scorecard, we have moderate community transmission. I think that's accurate. So what the CDC recommends is moderate mitigation. I just want to read a few things from this implementation article. They do say that this document describes the goals, guiding principles, and strategies for community mitigation to reduce or prevent local COVID-19 transmission. And then they go on to say individuals need to follow healthy hygiene practices, stay at home when sick, practice physical distance to lower the risk of disease spread, and use a cloth face covering with some exemptions in community settings when physical distance cannot be maintained. These universal precautions are appropriate regardless of the extent of mitigation needed. So what that says to me is these are individual responsibilities. Then later on in the document, the goals are listed as the first one is emphasizing individual responsibility for implementing recommended personal level actions. Cloth face coverings are recommended personal level actions. Just like hand washing, just like staying home when sick, just like practicing physical distancing when possible. And all of these are useful in preventing disease spread, but I think what this argument has become is that an argument that face coverings will universally prevent disease spread if we wear them, and not universally prevent disease spread if we don't wear them. And I think, sure, yeah, they're part of an implementation strategy, but does that strategy need to be mandated by our government a year after the start of the pandemic? I argue no, and I think many people in this community also argue no. Thanks for your time.
My name is Joel Davidson. If I heard correctly, the CDC says that masks are ineffective 1.8%, was that right? Now, if I do the math right, that means that they're saying that the mask is 98.2 ineffective. So I just, again, I agree with everybody else here. I'm just boggled by this. I'm also frustrated when I hear you say that the new laws that the legislature passed are hypocritical. But what they're saying is, for the last year and a half or so, people have gone out of business because of these mandates and they had no recourse. Now at least they have some recourse, and if the government doesn't respond, people are losing their livelihoods and their businesses and homes even because they've lost their income. That's all I've got to say.
Any other public comment? Commissioner Mays?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Rippon?
I have nothing.
Nor do I. Our next item.
Item 6, executive session.
There's not a need for an executive session today. We are adjourned.